to say it, to improve the process, because it has been very manual the last 5 years. But now it's not only about to report once a year your key indicators in sustainability, it's also strategic. So the top management of the companies needs to provide explanations in a regular basis to the other stakeholders.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Actionable ESG Talks Series, brought to you by Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, AKFI, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. Actionable ESG Talks Series bring together great minds to discuss the current state and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. Today, we're very delighted to be here with our guest, Alberto. Alberto, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, Alberto is a former consultant at PWC, and currently he's an independent ESG consultant. What he focuses on is about integration and development of ESG aspects in the corporate world. Alberto, that's a very, very interesting background, and I'd love to hear what excites you at the moment. What are you working on?
Oh, a lot of different approaches. First of all, I'm working with an organization integrating and developing ESG topics. So they change from an organization that, already conducts activities related with ESG, but changes to be an organization with a plan and a strategy to conduct that in the future, organized with material topics on all the process and structure to understand what to do and how to prioritize that. I'm also part of a trainee program from a university in Spain I'm helping the students and helping them to go through this training program about ESG and reporting and communication. And I'm also sometimes with my free time writing for some magazines, professional magazines about ESG investing, which I think it's it's already changing the way to approach to sustainability in companies and in the big corporate world.
Nice, awesome, wonderful. We love to hear all your hands-on, real-time kind of insights and real case scenarios. That's exactly what we want to know in today's world.
Mm-hmm. We're seeing a big change in sustainability. It's been crazy for the last 5-6 years. We have been changing from a situation that was something, I would say that related with marketing and philanthropy in big corporations, but now it's something that it's related with the business model of the organizations, and it's even related with the strategic decisions about conduct or not conduct the services and the relations that they have with the stakeholders. So we have gone from a situation of just communication and impact through a communication through a position of strategical positioning. We're also seeing how investors are pushing and integrating the ESG perspective in the decision that they take. So it's about, for companies, it's about also being able to reach the finance that they need to conduct the business. And we're also seeing the consumers and the employees that want to know what the companies are doing it. Also, at the same time, I don't know if I'm adding a lot of different topics or ideas, but at the same time, we're seeing how big corporations and investors are pushing ESG from listed companies and big corporations to the middles and the smaller ones.
Nice. Well, sorry, Manuel, I accidentally actually asked the first question already. I think a lot of what Alberto was mentioning, it's the trends, right?
I asked it twice, or we move to the next question.
I do hear a lot of trends. What do you think? We can still.
Exactly. I wanted to summarize actually, because I hear 2 or 3 major trends. At least, and Alberto, please add if I miss something. But The first one is going from, let's say, let's do ESG, let's be nice to the environment, let's be nice to stakeholders, and let's have a nice governance, to actually working it into the business planning process, working it into the sustainability and the resilience of the company in the future. Because once you put it in the business planning process, it becomes part of the activities of the board of directors. It becomes part of the KPIs, the key performance indicators of the management and the executives and the whole company eventually. So I picked up that theme. And I think the other very important theme is ESG now is no longer the privilege of the very large companies, the multinational and, the national champions, and is moving to become also accepted and adopted by the middle market, whatever companies that are medium to small to medium. And my sort of follow-up question, since you are in Europe, since you are in Spain, how do you see it from the European perspective as a trend? Because there are certain amount of differences or gaps between the way US thinks about sustainability, China, and Europe.
Well, I would say that Europe has the advance when we talk about regulation and transparency. Right now, we already have the non-financial reporting directive, which is going to change to corporate sustainability reporting directive. Is going to go further on the transparency and the quality of the data related with sustainability. And they also had in mind this change from, okay, let's be nice about ESG topics to, no, this is part of your business model. That's the reason they changed from non-financial to corporate reporting, because it's now European Union considers all that as being the same. But if we talk about other ways to push sustainability and ESG topics, we will see that from the investor's perspective, even if there's no regulatory framework for them in the United States, they also have a lot of advantage pushing ESG issues in the decisions about how to invest.
So there is this view of ESG where you can look at ESG as money flowing, green bonds and investments and getting access easier to money through good ESG ratings and good ESG performance. And then I think, as you pointed out, there is also this inside the company where it becomes part of the business processes, as you mentioned before, and it becomes monitored by the European community authorities in charge of monitoring the performance of enterprises, of listed enterprises. Please go ahead.
No, I was thinking that, well, in the European Union, we have these decisions or this regulatory environment that pushes to have that in mind, because they're developing, well, that's already in place, the European taxonomy, and they are already also preparing the social taxonomy, and they have this sustainable financial reporting directive. I always forget exactly the name of that, but all that context is to force at least the transparency in the investment world about, okay, this fund or this financial product, it's related with ESG. It's really taking in mind ESG concepts to decide where to allocate the capital, or it's just about greenwashing. So in the United States, there's no right now rules or standards to ensure that. But even with that, there's a lot of effort in the private industry to also integrate ESG topics. And I will say that if we consider the amount of ESG investment, when you see the data available, it's you see European Union and the United States going in the similar way.
And maybe I may add something, but recently, about 2-3 weeks ago, the Security and Exchange Commission issued the public or a request for public comments on introducing the greenhouse gases, the GHG, as part of the financial reporting, as they have materiality for the performance of the company, at least in the middle to long term. So it's sort of I'm thinking that in many cases Europe goes first with regulations and the US follows. It comes to my mind the issue of privacy, for instance, in handling private information. First, the European community set up the rules, and then other countries are modeling their rules after those rules on, for instance, the right to be forgotten in privacy. So do you think that Europe is again leading the charge on ESG?
I'm sure
How does it
at
feel?
least,
How does it feel?
At least from the transparency perspective. So what the United States is doing is starting with the easy part of standardization, which is climate change. It's not easy, but when we talk about climate change, you can use the same framework. You can compare at least scope 1 and 2. It's more easy to regulate, but the European Union is going ahead with that, talking about social issues, governance issues. They're preparing a standard that is going to cover all the ESG processes, not only climate change. So they are ahead, but again, we see that the private industry, it's already including the whole perspective of ESG, not only climate change.
So I'll turn it back to Isabella. So I'm sure she has a long list of questions as well. So Isabella, please go ahead.
Thank you for the sharing. I can hear some of my the answers from my coming question again already, regarding how to execute, really implement all these strategies and ESG initiatives that we've been talking about. When it comes to that, there's always obstacles, challenges, situations. From my basic understanding, ESG, it's probably still at kind of early stage of developing. So there's all kinds of informations and critical segments that we need to take into consideration. With the work you've been doing, what are some of the critical regional and global challenges that you are seeing?
Well, as you already mentioned, it's very difficult to assess because there's a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different topics that are related with ESG. We're talking about high level of quality with governance. We're talking about social issues, inequality. We're talking about also environmental topics, and that's different depending on the sector and the company. So what is the main topic has been always how to ensure that each company is reporting and managing the topics that are relevant for that company. And that's the problem that the European Union is trying to solve with these new standards, integrated standards, because we have even different languages to talk about ESG. If we go with the different standards and structures, I would say that that's the main topic. Then we have the flow of data around the organization, data related with ESG, as the topics are different for the different sectors and companies. There's also different information that we need to measure ESG inside each organization. So there's, again, how to put all that data together.
So it's still under development. It's kind of very initial phase to still trying to figure out what's the best standard to follow.
Someone told me 2 weeks ago, key data that was very interesting to consider, that when we talk about financial reporting, they need like 50, I think that they say 50, 60 years of experience to be able to have standard to report about finance around the whole world. So we only have been doing this with sustainability for the last 5-10 years. So we have been trying to run faster with this information, but it's the same process. We need to have the same language to talk about it. So we are able to compare the ESG performance of the different companies across the whole world.
Wow, we are only not even quarter of it yet, but we're trying to speed up. What do you think about that, Manuel? How far we are?
Well, now we have.
Go ahead. No, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Albert.
Now we have the different languages. At least that's something. We have global reporting initiative. We have, when we talk about climate change in specific, we have reports of TCFD. We have a lot of different standards. So the first approach now it's from the European Union to mix that together to have the same standard for all the European Union. That could help. But also we are in the process of digitalize, which I think it's something relevant for this conversation, digitalize the process to have this information together. And also, that's the second part. Now it's not only about report, it's also about being able to have a strategy that makes sense. So the goals that you decide for your company, you have a real way to conduct that and to fulfill the goals that you have in mind. So for that, you need not only to report, but also to have a strategy and a prediction of what is going to be with that information in the future. That's the second part, and it's even more difficult about to manage that only to report.
And maybe sort of on the same topic, from your experience at PWC, from your activities, hands-on activities, do you see a more focus on what you mentioned on digitalization, on digital transformation, and ESG going hand in hand in the boards of directors and getting into the focus to consider multiple transformation processes? There is an ESG sustainability process. There is a digital transformation, digitalization process. As you mentioned, so all these are very, very new to the executives, to the managers, and that they still have to cope with it. They have to deal with it, even with a number of standards that are still immature and taxonomy that is still being debated. How do you see these activities? Because are we in the center of a storm?
Well, from my perspective as an auditor, I had the opportunity to see the internal system to manage ESG data in the different organizations, and I can tell you that they need to improve. I'm trying to find the right word to say it, to improve the process, because it has been very manual the last 5 years. But now it's not only about to report once a year your key indicators and sustainability, it's also strategic. So the top management of the companies needs to provide explanations in a regular basis to the other stakeholders of the company. So for that, they need an actual flow of the data that comes with the digitalization. You can do that if you do it manually with an Excel and report internally. You need a system in place that it's able to collect all the information in real time, and even to give you the situation of your accomplishment of the different goals that you have in the short, medium, and long term. So that's the issue that a lot of different companies right now are trying to assess. There's in the last 2 years, I would say that a lot of different companies appeared to startups to provide new software that it's able to do that.
So that sort of gets me to the next question, which is, and I think you already summarized it very nicely, the automation process, going from people manipulating, or manipulating is the wrong word, but using spreadsheets and using a manual reporting system that maybe it's used once a year. You accumulate the data and you publish once a year, to real time. So how the leadership, what do they need to adapt? You also training and instructing and teaching new leaders in the university in Spain. And if you want, you can mention the name of the university. But how the leadership has to look to adapt to these changes and ensure really what is the most important thing in the company is the long-term viability. Nothing goes if the company doesn't function anymore, if it collapses or gets acquired.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is how the leadership should adapt really to ensure the present leaders and the future leaders.
Mm-hmm. Well, sustainable finance, understood as company being able to be there in the next 20 years, it's always going to be relevant. It's not about assessing the financial stability and also the ESG issues. It's about understanding how all of that is the same. So we want to reach the line where we can work on ESG topics and also financial return at the same time. That's the area of, I would say, efficiency managing ESG topics. I will say that that's the main issue. It's not about philanthropy. It's not about doing beautiful things for stakeholders anymore. It's about mixing together, putting in line how ESG topics are connected with the business model of the company. That's the big idea. I think that the leaders of the future need to have technical understanding of ESG topics, so they are able to take the decisions at top management level of the organization that allows the organization to run in that path.
Love it.
They have to be basically very up to date on technology, I think, on the business processes. Of course, digital transformation is also part of the transformation of the company, of the platforms, of the way they interact with their stakeholders. So a great answer. And I'll turn it back to Isabella.
Sure. I've been thinking about a question. Actually, I asked when we were talking about with our last guest as well, because it just keeps spinning in my head. I do agree. I think Europe is more ahead of this topic regarding climate change, environment. Two of the speakers I talked with for my book, both are from Europe, one from Spain, one from France, and they both mentioned compared with other issues, we have a very urgent reality to face that it's probably less than 10 years will happen to humanity. So if that happened, our whole probably planet will be gone. And to be short, it's about climate change, the temperature, things like that. They really see the urgency that is happening in a much sooner phase. So I wonder, Alberto, since we're talking about environment, ESG stuff, what do you think about that? And among those leaderships, what's their reaction or thoughts around this sense of urgency? Do they even realize, or what are their mentality?
Well, first of all, there has been a lot of data and information about the future risks that the companies are going to face if we don't deal with climate change and other issues. Even for the people that don't consider climate change something relevant or even connected with the human activity, we have a lot of different issues that are also environmental issues and social issues. We have plastic going around the water. We have extinction of different species. We have new risks related with weather that could be, I think that are related with climate change, and the scientist community is saying that, but imagine that it's not connected. Even with that, you have to manage that. And with social issues, we have a lot of people working with flexibility, connecting around the world. That's going to be also a big issue. We have inequality in finance, and we are going to have robotization of the new of some tasks. So we are going to have more unemployed people probably. There's a lot of different ways to see it, and people need to manage that. So I think that right now, at least the companies are aware that they need to have a position and they need to take care of those risks, or at least need to do something. Maybe some of them don't believe in that. So maybe some of them don't care about that, but all of them understood that they have to take care of that, because the stakeholders, they really believe in these risks and in these potential impacts for the organizations.
And maybe Isabella was kind enough to refer to her interviews with book authors, but she's preparing, and I don't know, Isabella, if I can talk about it, but I know you're preparing a new book, and you're posing very important questions, especially to the future generation, to your generation and the future generations, on
Alberto,
how we're going to deal with
that.
Probably.
Yes. Yeah.
And Alberto's generation, of course, together.
Right. I focus more on this kind of humanity culture side of the future, which is to me very interesting, and I really want to also integrate this into the future ESG talk as a discussion point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So thank you. I think we can talk for hours. So maybe Isabella, I'll turn on to you for first thing, probably inviting Alberto again to a future talk, and maybe you have one final question.
What's your thoughts, Alberto, on today's progress, or how to progress in this fast-changing digital world?
If you have a magic wand, what would you do? Well, I think that right now everything is changing really fast. So digitalization is part of it. And for people now, it's always about being involved in the new things that are coming and have continuous training. For me, as an ESG advisor, it's very difficult to just keep up about the topics that are related with sustainability. So imagine if you are related with any other topic, it's everything is changing really fast. So the only way to assess that is to keep the training constantly and being interested, be doing something that is interesting for you. So you continuously improve yourself and being actualized just because you are interested in that.
Always be open. Always be learning. That's the messaging I'm receiving.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Lovely, Alberto. Thank you for all the insights and your valuable, thoughts on this very baby stage topic. We need a lot of people like you to continue discuss, to continue discover new things. And thank you all to our dear audience for joining us today. Make sure to tuning in every week for a new episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talks Series, and you will be able to learn new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value by integrating ESG with digital transformation. Until the next one, thank you all very much. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Manuel. Goodbye.
Thank you, Alberto, and thank you, Isabella. See you soon.
Thank you for being here.